Hello, I am Lackadaisical Luster, and today we will be discussing recent events which transpired in Minneapolis. A man named Jake Lang was assaulted when he attempted to counter protest the anti ICE protest slash riots, which have been ongoing and escalating.
Jay, you thought it was a good idea. Is that him? Is that him? Yes! Open the door! Oh my god. Drive! Oh my god.
Escalating. Now, we will be tying into this the Islamic aspect of this entire ordeal. So to begin with Jake Lang himself. He is a known agitator. It has been well discussed that he actually is not a white Christian, as he labels himself, but was raised as an Orthodox Jewish man. This is true. However, that is not why he was attacked. You see, the crowd did not cry out, "You are subversive. You are lying about who you are. You are misrepresenting your cause." That is not what was said. He was attacked. He was assaulted. He was dragged through the streets, allegedly stabbed, definitely had to have stitches on his head because he is claiming, at least, to be an outwardly white Christian that is proud of who he is. And he's doing this in public.
Now out of Minnesota, 1:33 Saturday afternoon, 1:33 Pacific Standard Time, Saturday afternoon. This is Jake Lang, Minnesota.
Ultimately, no matter your thoughts on who he is or why he's doing what he's doing, this is ultimately why he was attacked. That is the reality. And some may say, well, you're falling for the psyop. This is the entire point of the operation. Perhaps you're right. But it's hard to deny that the reason he was attacked is because he has white skin and is a proud Christian. So, how does this tie into Islam? Well, since the attack, I have seen personally, as well as been documented by others, open braggadocio by many well-known and lesser well-known Muslims in the social media landscape. Not only do they brag, but they directly connect this attack and justify it with their religion. That is not my claim, it is theirs. Why does this matter? Well, since the assault, this group of people have become invigorated. It has instilled a level of confidence in them, which prior to certainly did not exist, at least not to the level that it does now. The Muslim population, just like many others, is a fifth column within our nation. This is a matter of fact, not a matter of debate. Yes, there are some who are ethnically American who may practice the religion of Islam, but the numbers are negligible. And no, I am not referring to citizenship paperwork. Not only have they directly justified this attack with their religion, but you have seen a serious uptick in Islamic mantras in reaction to said assault. Middle Eastern conflicts are now being seen in American cities. This is just a truth.
It's not just about resistance here in Minneapolis. It's about love. We are showing something far more powerful and consequential here, which is love. We are standing up for one another. You've got neighbors helping neighbors. You've got people uniting and coming together in this beautiful way.
Say Jake Lang is a Jewish man. That only proves the point further that we are seeing conflicts which should be relegated to the Middle East now popping up in our own American cities. This is a fact. And these fifth columns, not just Muslims, but them as well, they want white Americans, or just Americans, as I would say, to be scared of opposing them publicly. They want you to cower in fear, accept that you will become a second-class citizen in the nation which your forebears bled and shed blood to build. This is the reality. Now, this is the point of this video is not to say that Islam is a bad religion or to counter their claims, even. That's not what I'm interested in. I am interested in preserving American heritage and the culture which has been established over the last 250 years plus. Now, this is not to say that all Muslims are bad, or even that the majority of them are bad. It is to say that it is within their doctrine that they must, if they have the ability to do so, inflict their laws upon whatever population they find themselves in. It's not about the radicals necessarily, although of course they present their own issues. This is a matter of numbers. This is a matter of demographics. And when they have the demographics to inflict Sharia law, they will. Not only will they, by their own doctrines, it would be considered a great sin to not do so. This is a fact. Now, of course, it was not just Muslims involved. There were many others. These people are effectively useful idiots. This is the reality. They would be sacrificed for the furtherance of Islamic or communist, anti-American in general, goals with zero hesitation or empathy from those who they are sacrificing themselves for. These people are ideologically possessed to their own detriment and the detriment of their future generations. They ultimately have been weaponized against their own people by extremely effective propaganda, which is ultimately intergenerational. This is nothing new. We are seeing a crescendo of propaganda which has been levied against the American people for decades. To cover this briefly, many of the organizers behind these protests or riots openly advocate against the existence of borders.
No borders, no nations. Stop deportations. No borders, no nations. Stop deportations. No borders. These border walls have got to go. From Palestine to Mexico. These border walls have got to go.
Understand that that is a blatant act of aggression against national sovereignty itself. Thus, of course, the American nation. They appear to be enemies of the American nation, operating and organizing within our own borders. I will cover that more in a separate video. These people, these non-Muslim white people who are attending and a big part of these riots and protests, the reality is that they would be much less effective in their goals and in the furtherance of those goals without the foreign hordes to protect them, to act as a barrier. Although in reality, you can find countless videos of white liberals saying, we will put ourselves in front of the foreign hordes and use our so-called white privilege to protect us. I could go much deeper into that, but I want to keep this topical. So, with all of this said, what can be done? Where do we go from here? And those are good questions. I do not want to operate as a despair merchant who will simply tell you all the things that are wrong in the world and then leave you to your own devices. For those people are not good. They are of no use to you. Understand that. Anyway, what can be done? Well, first of all, I would like to point this out. This is something which nobody really seems to be talking about. Division. Division as a automatically negative word. But the thing is that division does not require outside influence or subversion. Division is natural. And not only is it natural, it is actually a prerequisite to the preservation of culture. In my last video, I went into how the melting pot theory and multiculturalism is actually the destruction of all independent and unique cultures. To take that to the next step, division is what protects it. Division is a word which has been connotatively associated with many terrible things. And there is artificially fabricated division, divide and conquer tactics. This is Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Of course, that is real. That is true. But that is not to say that separation between peoples is bad. It is not bad. And in fact, I would argue that strong fences create good neighbors. Now, on the topic of the freedom of / from religion. Of course, that is a foundational tenet of the Bill of Rights. However, Islam itself requires instituting Sharia law whenever they have the ability to do so. This is a matter of doctrine. This is not a matter of radicalization or the extreme elements. The moderates must do this as well if they want to follow their own doctrine. This is a fact. This is not up for debate. You can do your own research on the matter and you will find that this is in fact the case. Now, if you were to ask certain Muslim scholars, many of whom are very intelligent and do have some very interesting ideas. However, there is such a thing as taqiyya or taqiyya, in which a Muslim is allowed to lie if he is in a situation in which it would protect him and allow him to continue to be Muslim. But you must understand and take that into account when you do your research only looking to Muslim sources. They will lie to the kafir, to the kafirs, to those who are not Muslim. So keep that in mind before you respond to this in a manner in which says, No, they don't all do that. They don't have to do that. That is not true. Perhaps you're right, but perhaps they are practicing one of the tenets of their religion. I will say this, I do admire the strict adherence to their codes, and I do think that the Christian world could learn something from that. However, they are not Christian, and while many of the foundational principles are similar, it is certainly not the same, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to protect and preserve Christendom. Now, America is not an explicitly Christian nation. This is true. However, it is explicitly stated that the Constitution, more specifically the Bill of Rights, was written for and on the foundation of a high trust, morally upstanding Christian population. This is a matter of historical record. Not only that, but the very idea of individual rights can be traced back to the teachings of Jesus Christ. This is a fact. You don't have to be a practicing Christian or dogmatically believe in the Bible to understand that the root of our justice system traces its lineage back to the Bible. This is true. Why do you think that you have 12 of your peers who determine if you are guilty or innocent? 12 being the operative number, same as there were disciples. And a judge who sits on high and determines. It is a materialistic interpretation of Christian foundation, of Christian principles and tenets. This is a fact. And the reality is that no matter how many good or bad things you can say about the religion of Islam, Islamic enclaves directly threaten the right to practice other religions. This is a fact. Just look at the Islamic world. Now, yes, there will be some other religions which are practiced. However, they are not allowed to practice openly. They are not allowed to proselytize or be evangelical in their nature. They may practice their religion in the privacy of their own home, but they may not attempt to convert. In some of these nations, that is a capital crime. I'm not suggesting that we should simply take that and apply it to this situation. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we ought to preserve our cultural heritage, which is largely rooted in Christianity. This is a fact. Now, all of that said, something that I must address here before I wrap up the video. So there has been much talk about illegal immigration and how we need to round up the illegals and deport them back to where they were. Come the right way. Do it legally, right? That's what they say. I would present the notion that legal immigration is a much larger and more pernicious issue than illegal immigration. Yes, when the gates of Toledo were wide open, as they were for 4 years at least, that can lead to great problems. However, we have a legal framework in which to deport those people. It is the changes in immigration law since 1965, the Hart-Celler Act, which have ultimately led us into the position that we are in today. It is much more difficult to remove legal residents. You see, it was promised that the changes in immigration laws would not change the demographic makeup of this nation clearly that is not the case. I discussed this in more detail in my last video, so I won't continue ranting on about it. In summation, this is not to say Muslims are bad people or that Islam is a false religion or any of that. That's not where I'm coming from. America has its foundation in Christian literature and principles that directly translated into the creation of the Bill of Rights. Good fences make good neighbors, and allowing foreign fifth columns to self-segregate and operate on their own interests within our own borders is clearly to the detriment of the American people and our posterity. Thank you for watching. This has been Lackadaisical Lester, and if anyone has any comments, thoughts, disagreements, feel free to leave those in the comment section. Good night.